hello, and welcome back to Afterglow episode 75, where today we're going to be taking our first look at a game for the Sega Master System. Now, there probably won't be a whole lot of Master System episodes, just because as a kid, I had one given to me by my uncle with a very, very small handful of games. So, those few reviews will be spread out quite a bit, but I figured episode 75, we are 3/4 of the way to episode 100, which is just insane to me. Kind of surprised that I've made it that far with this show, but we're 3/4 of the way there. Figured it's a good time to maybe crack that bottle open and check out a Master System game, and to explain my early history with how I got a Master System and my thoughts of it at the time. So we're going to be checking out Rambo First Blood Part 2 for the Sega Master System. So before we get too deep into the game, let's talk about how I got the system itself. A lot of this is going to be a little vague in my memory, but from my uncle, I got two hand-me-down consoles. The first I talked about way back in the Atari 2600 special episode that we did, which was, of course, a 2600. The second one, which I think I got like maybe 1 to 2 years later, was the Sega Master System. And this system I knew nothing about when he gave it to me. I had no clue about whatsoever, and that continued during the time that I had it, because I never found a single store that was selling games for the thing. Of course, my area didn't have a whole lot. We had to travel to Evansville, was our nearest major city, and that was like maybe once every 6 months or so. For the most part, we went to the smaller cities in the area, so a lot of the game stores, or not even game stores, but stores that sold games, would be like Kmart, Walmart, and even Big Lots had some 2600 games. But I never found any Master System games at any of those stores that I went to. So I want to say I only got like maybe 6 games with the system, and that's all I pretty well had. Which is really a bummer, because later on in life, I realized that, wow, this thing had a ton of good games for it. I had no clue about most of them for the most part, although my collection that I did have given to me had some solid games in it. In addition to Rambo First Blood Part 2, I believe there was a Rambo 3 on it, Space Harrier, Afterburner, Ghostbusters. Those are all the ones that stand out to me. And then there even had the, of course this came with most Master Systems, if you boot up the system without a game, you had like the Maze game that was built in that you could play. And that to me was really cool, because, you know, at that point, my 2600 didn't do anything without the game, my NES didn't do anything without the game. So it was really cool to see a system have like a hidden game I had no clue about for the first few months I even had the system. But unfortunately, until my emulation days, I had no clue that this thing had a pretty decent library to it. And those were the only games I had with it. And I have no clue what actually happened to the system. I don't know whether it broke. I don't know if maybe I swapped it for more NES games, which I might have during that period if I got tired of the, 4 or 5 games I had with it. But I did have this system for probably a couple years, and I enjoyed my time with it, but, I couldn't find any new games for it. I couldn't find anyone to trade games with. Couldn't find even more games to borrow with. So, yeah, I got bored with it after a while, and I think that I either swapped it for a few more NES games, or I just forgot about it and, got possibly broken. Because I remember that after we moved from Gleason, I didn't have this system anymore. But that is my history with the Sega Master System, at least until the emulation era. So we're going to take another quick music break before we go more detailed into this particular game on it. So Rambo 2 was one game on the Master System I played quite a bit of. Yes, I know, tiny library. But this game was really good. It played, in my opinion, like an improved version of Ikari Warriors. It was top-down, and your character went from the bottom of the screen to the top. You always had a maximum of 4 bad guys in the screen at one time, so you could kind of take advantage. If certain baddies were in an area where they weren't really a threat to you, you're better off just to run past them rather than kill them, because the longer they're on that screen, the more of a chance that you will not have another enemy spawn at you. Kind of a cool touch. Rambo looks really good. He looks like Rambo. The title screen looks amazing, has a good looking image of Sylvester Stallone on there. And the game kind of has a Rambo feel to it. You do get the exploding arrows as a secondary weapon. Your primary weapon is a machine gun, but I do have issues with the machine gun because it fires like giant white ping pong balls that only go a quarter of the way up the screen. So the enemies can fire the entire width of the screen, whereas you can't, so you gotta be very tactical with how you fight. Although, in this game, fighting isn't the best option. Yeah, it's kind of weird for a Rambo game, you think you want to blow up everything, but no. You kind of want to run past and dodge everything, because, again, every time you kill a bad guy, another one is going to spawn in a different area on the screen. So, it's advantageous to you to just ignore them, keep them on screen, and then just run past them. Another thing that kind of figures into that is that this game is very random. You can't memorize enemy placements and whatnot because it's kind of randomized every time you play. This is a bad thing in my opinion because the game has no continues. You have, I believe, 3 lives, and after they're gone, you're done. Back to the beginning of the game with you. So you could find yourself in a situation where the enemy randomization puts you in a no-win scenario, and you're stuck. There's nothing you can do about it. But it's not all bad. Like I said, the graphics are really, really good looking for an 8-bit game. The gameplay is fun. It's challenging. It's very challenging. But it's fun, and I feel it's more fair than Ikari Warriors is, even with the randomization involved. Because at least there are tricks you can use in this game to leave enemies on screen, that way you can maneuver around easier. Although most of the challenge in this game is after levels 1 and 2, where you're more or less walking in these tight corridors and your ability to dodge is greatly hampered by the fact that, let's say you're on a bridge, and you take out an enemy shooting at you, and all of a sudden one spawns in an area that's got a perfect bead on you. You lose your last life, the game's over. That part feels very unfair, but that's also where the challenge is in this game. It's all based off of where your enemy spawns and how fast you can react. Every level more or less ends the same. You have a gateway that you have to blow through in order to finish the level, but for the longest time I didn't realize these gateways are actually kind of invincible until you kill a certain number of enemies once you get to that final gate. I didn't know this as a younger kid, so I'm blasting away without realizing this thing is, it's not going down. Now, once you kill that number of enemies that you need to kill, the gate will start flashing, and that's when you can damage it and go through. And stupid me, I thought it was flashing because I was close to finally blowing it up. But no, it's the number of enemies that you take out. On top of that, throughout the levels, you'll often find these, like, they look like tents, but they're flashing. You can take them out with your bomb arrows, and these POWs will be in there that you can rescue to get a power-up item. I believe there's one that makes your bullets shoot faster, stuff like that. Game is very challenging, and although your guy looks like Rambo, there's a lot of stuff in this game that isn't very Rambo-like, in my opinion. Like, it's a two-player simultaneous game. You're thinking, Rambo usually works alone. Like, would your secondary character be someone like Colonel Trotton or something? No. No, you get yellow bandana Rambo. I don't get it. His skin's a darker color, and he wears a yellow bandana. No clue who he is. Maybe he's Rambo 2, and that's why the game's called Rambo 2. You have Rambo, and you have Rambo 2. I have no clue. I think it would have been cool to maybe have Trotton fight alongside you, but such as it is, that didn't happen. Also, some of the levels kind of make no sense. Further on in the game, there's a level where you're taking out cops and police officers, which would have made sense in Rambo 1. Doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense in Rambo 2, though. Well, I mean, that being said, this game is actually a repackaged game. Overseas, it had a different name, and it didn't have the Rambo theme with it. So whenever it came over here, they made it a licensed game by making it a Rambo game. But it's actually another Mario 2 Doki Doki Panic situation where it's been skinned. But I enjoyed it a whole lot as a kid. Yeah, it does have a few issues I did talk about, but it's a fun overhead run and gun game. I think it's better than Ikari Warriors, personally. I had a blast with it as a kid. I replayed it this year. I did manage to beat it because, unlike whenever I was a kid, I found out, oh, hey, I kill bad guys and then I can blow the gate up. So that obviously helped a whole lot. But yeah, it's fun. Like, if you're looking for a game that you just haven't played before, you kind of want to check out something new, go back to the Master System and have a look at Rambo 2. I really enjoyed it, and I think a lot of my listeners out there will too. But we're going to listen to a little bit more music from the game before we finally close out this episode. And as always, thank you for listening to another episode of Afterglow. Be sure to be on the lookout in the future. I do have a couple more recorded now with a couple more guest hosts. They will be coming up very soon in the future. If you're looking for more goodies, if you check the show notes below, there is a link to the Afterglow Discord as well as our Patreon. You can also check out friends of the show like Retro Gaming Roundup, Secret Levels, as well as the Lost and Gone podcast. Our show logo is done by Toby from the Secret Levels podcast, and our music intro and outro is done by Grim from the Lost and Gone podcast. Thanks again for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode of Afterglow.